Good morning, everybody. Welcome to hour two of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And we just finished a awesome hour with Coach Cody Alexander going through what his diagnosis is for what's going on with the Seahawks defense, where he thinks it's personnel issues, where he thinks it's coaching, what he thinks is possible here. And we are now entering hour two, where I'm going to do our first look, our deep dive into the Seahawks at the Falcons. What did I find when I wrote my tale of the tape, which, by the way, is up there and available at hawkblogger.com. Go over there and check it out. You're going to want to make sure you come back to that over the course of the week. I'll give you a couple things to be aware of with the Coach Cody show. If you didn't have a chance to watch that hour, the headline for him is his confidence in Mike Macdonald is unshaken. As bad as things have been the last three games, his confidence is unshaken in Coach Macdonald. He really believes this guy is going to get it fixed, and that he's in the process right now of learning what his players can and cannot do, and which players can and cannot play for him. And that's going to take a little bit of time. And unfortunately, you wish that all the answers to those questions are positive early on and you just hit the ground running and everything just is perfect. But that the reality is you hit some really tough competition in terms of Detroit and San Francisco. And you did it in a period of time where you had some injuries and some very small amounts of practice. I think there was literally maybe one practice where they were doing something more than a walkthrough during that period of time. And we're not able to kind of get through that. We're not necessarily deep enough or good enough to be able to handle that. And I think the coaches also thought they might be capable of some things. Turned out that they weren't. So Cody Alexander thinks that better times are ahead. I happen to be in that camp as well. And as I've said before, I think that Mike Macdonald is inevitable. I think that he is going to get the defense figured out. The question is how quickly. And this is his first chance since this 3-game disaster to really look at things, review the film, get a breather, get an extra practice in. They got a Monday practice, which they don't normally get, and to see if they can address what's going on with the Seahawks defense. So if you're just tuning in now, this episode, we're going to go deep on the matchup between the Seahawks and the Falcons. And I do my best, even though I am clearly a Seahawks fan and a Seahawks media member, to look at this objectively, because honestly, when you try to preview a game and you try to convince yourself that your team's going to win, then you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. I mean, I'd rather have a good guess that they're going to lose and be ready for it than vice versa. So I'm going to do my best, as usual, to take a look and share an objective perspective on this team. I am not going to be sharing film study today. We've started to get some YouTube copyright issues with film study, so I'm going to at least check on that a little bit longer before I do more. We did it in the first hour, and my guess is that that episode is going to be demonetized. So that's too bad, but it was worth it because I really wanted to spend some time with Cody on that. So looking at this matchup with the Falcons, there's a bunch of stuff to go through here. And I'm going to start just by sharing some aspects of this Falcons team to help people that don't know this team what's going on with them. And I think when people think about the Falcons, what they think about is, Kirk Cousins, Drake London. Maybe you think of Kyle Pitts. You might have some other guys, Bijan Robinson, obviously, on the running back side. Few things to know. And in some ways, the Falcons have almost been the inverse of the Seahawks, at least of late. So the Seahawks have lost 3 straight, right? They were all crushing kinds of defeats. The Falcons have won 3 straight. And the Seahawks have played 1 division game, the 49ers game that they lost. The Falcons' last 3 games, the ones that they've won 3 straight, those were all division games. They beat the Saints, they beat the Bucks, and they just beat the Panthers. Now you can, obviously, it's clear that's not the best division out there by any stretch, but those are, at least 2 of those teams have been competitive and would qualify as better wins than most of the teams the Seahawks have beat so far this year. So, they're coming in with 3 straight wins. They, on offense, obviously are well known for Kirk Cousins and their passing attack and everything that's going on there. But they also, when they went to try to get their run game started, they were able to do it. So against the Panthers, they ran for 198 yards on the ground. I think they nearly had two 100-yard rushers in that game. Let me just double check. They had 105 for Tyler Algier and 95 for Bijan Robinson. So, they have now found a complementary rushing attack to what is already a very good passing attack. The game before the Panthers game, they played the Bucks, and in that game, they put up 550 total yards. 477 of them were passing yards. Kirk Cousins passed for 509 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. So you've got really what can be a very lethal passing attack for the Falcons, while also now adding in a good rush attack. Now, they're doing this all behind, again, the inverse of the Seahawks, behind a very good offensive line. Now, we'll talk a little bit about some of there's a player that's missing there. There's some potential weaknesses in that line that are worth calling out. But in general, Seahawks fans would take that offensive line 100 times out of 100 compared to what the Seahawks have been running out there most of the year. So this is a team that, is feeling very good about themselves. They are 4-2, won 3 straight. They've got their confidence. Even when they talk about their losses, the Falcons, if you're a Falcons fan, you're like, the last time we lost was by 5 points to the Kansas City Chiefs, like an undefeated team. We barely lost that game. The only other loss we have on the season is to a 4-2 Pittsburgh Steelers team, and that was a relatively close game as well. So if you're a Falcons fan, you're like, man, we beat the Eagles. That's a quality opponent. We beat the Saints back when that still was not clearly an easier game to win. We beat the Bucks, and the Bucks have been a pretty darn good team. They are 4-2 as it stands. And we're 3-0 in our division. So the Falcons have to be looking at this, and the Falcons fans have to be looking at this as we are hitting our stride. We are relatively healthy. That's another inverse of the Seahawks. I'll talk about some of the injuries, but for the most part, their injury situation is nothing bad. And so they're coming to this, I think, bubbling with confidence, especially on offense. Now, they are not completely the inverse of the Seattle Seahawks. Where are they similar? Well, their run defense is bad. It is, I would argue, and you could debate me on this, I think it is a worse run defense than the Seahawks. Play in, play out. This team has allowed 100 yards rushing in every single game this year. They've allowed at least 114 yards rushing. In fact, they've allowed more than 128 yards rushing in 5 of the 6 games. They've allowed 135 yards or more in 34 3 of the 6 games. So you've had an 186-yard rushing game against the Eagles. You had 160 yards rushing for the Bucks. The Steelers went for 140. This is a rushing defense that just, it's not stout up front. They don't have a lot of strength at the line. They don't have great edge setters. The linebacker play can be okay, but it's not fantastic. And then you've got some questionable, support at the safety position with a little bit of older players there and what they've been able to do. So this is a team that the Seahawks, this is, I think, the worst run defense the Seahawks have faced all year. This is a defense that the Seahawks should be able to actually lean on. Yes, you won't believe me, but I'm going to say it. The Seahawks offensive line should be able to create space that Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet have not seen so far this year. And for what it's worth, those guys have been pretty explosive despite the lack of open running space so far this year. So that's one place where they deviate from the Seahawks, where they're the same as the Seahawks. Another way where they're inverse or opposite of the Seahawks is another weakness for them, where the Seahawks defense has been absolutely one of the best teams in the NFL about creating pressure. The Atlanta Falcons are the worst team, 32 out of 32 in terms of pressuring the quarterback. This is a team where if you're looking at them, who has the most pressures for their team, you've got Matthew Judon, who's like, what is he, 36, 37 years old? Oh, he's 32. I thought he was older than that. 32 years old. He looks old. Matthew Judon has 11 pressures. Grady Jarrett has 11 pressures. Grady Jarrett is not the player he once was. He's 31. He is not as explosive as he has been in the past. And then Caden Ellis is another guy that has 10 pressures. But by comparison, folks, if you look at the Seahawks, so again, the top player on the Falcons in terms of pressures has 11. For the Seahawks, they have 5 players that have 17 pressures or more on the year. 5 players. So it's a completely different amount of pressure that the Seahawks are creating relative to what the Falcons are creating. And so when you look at the Seahawks, what is one of the things that's been a foundational problem for them? Offensive line, right? I mean, offensive line, been a foundational problem. This is a situation where this is probably the most advantageous matchup that they have seen so far this year. If you look at what are the teams, I'm going to look at it a couple different ways, all right? If we look at PFF and we look at pass rush grade, the Seahawks have faced the number 1, the number 6, the number 8, the number 10, the number 14, and what am I missing? The Lions, the 49ers, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Broncos, right? The Broncos. So they have faced all of their opponents have been in the top 17 of pressure grade for PFF. The Falcons are 30th. If I was to go and look at this as pressures in terms of who has the highest pressure rate, this is a Pro Football Reference number. I can look over at FTN Fantasy here in a little bit. The Seahawks have faced the lowest team the Seahawks have faced before this would have been the Patriots. Again, the Falcons, they are 31st out of 32 teams in terms of pressure rate. So you are facing absolutely the most advantageous matchup from a offensive line perspective. Does not mean that they will be perfect. It does not mean that the Falcons aren't licking their chops at the chance to face the Seahawks offensive line. But there's a lot of reasons to think, man, Geno Smith might actually get time and might get a clean pocket now and then. You might actually have some shorter downs and distances to go against. And that can just lead to, and remember, Geno Smith, I'll pull up the latest numbers. Let me actually do that real quick. Geno Smith, in a dome, Geno Smith is pretty darn good. His latest numbers after the 400 yards he threw against the Lions. Let me see if it's in this sheet. There we go. Geno in domes. So wait, did I do this again? Hold on, folks. I know I did this somewhere. I'm going to try to find it. But in any event, Geno is very good in domes. And so that's another part of this is that he's someone who has a chance to just be effective in general in dome situations. But now you've got him with potentially his most advantageous situation to date. So one other thing that I will give you in terms of a number here is that I want to try to look at, see if I can find these numbers I pulled together quickly. King of Domes. Anyway, can't find it. So the other thing I was going to share with you all is that this Falcons defense has allowed points to be scored on 50% of the drives for opponents. Every other drive has resulted in points against this Falcons defense. So the only team in the NFL that has allowed higher than 50% is the Carolina Panthers at 52.9%. So again, this is probably the worst defense the Seahawks have faced so far this year, by almost any measure. And so the Seahawks have every reason to think that they will be able to put points up in this game, indoors, against a bad run defense, a bad pass rush. There should be points there for the Seahawks in this game. The other side of the ball is where things get more challenging. And this is like the way I wrote about it in Tail of the Tape is the good news. The good news is that you're not going to be able to really hide in this game. You're not going to be able to say, oh, well, that was just a crappy team. If the Seahawks defense plays well, you won't be able to say, oh, well, that was just a crappy team that they played. No, you don't get to do that in this game. This is a very good offense that has a good offensive line, good passing, and playing at home with a lot of confidence. You know, this is not one where you can play they didn't play anybody card. They are playing a very good offense in this game. The one thing that I will call out that is worth kind of knowing is their center, Drew Dahlman, who's a very good center, been playing well for them at least. He is out injured. He's been on the IR. He will not be back for this game. And the guy that they've been playing in his place has been like a mediocre player. He has not been an absolute disaster, but he has not been as good. I'd also share that the Falcons offensive linemen remarkably do not grade out that well in terms of pass protection. So of their of their offensive linemen that have played the most snaps in pass protection, just one of them has a pass block grade over 66. And that's Jake Matthews, their left tackle, who has a 75 grade. 3 of the 5 offensive linemen have a pass block grade 60 or under. So where they really shine is their run block grades. Like they are all they're all generally very good in that regard. But pass blocking has been an issue. And if I go and I look at, let me take a look at, if I look by team and I look at pass block grades for PFF, the Falcons are essentially right around the Seahawks in terms of pass block grades. So that gives you an idea of where they fit. As far as looking at pass block efficiency in terms of the offensive line, when you look at Atlanta, they rank down at 25th in the NFL in pass block efficiency. So this is a team that, while they've been doing well running the ball and while they've been able to pass the ball, they have been giving up pressure. The other thing to note is that Kirk Cousins is a very different passer when he's blitzed versus when he is not. So if I look up this piece, as far as quarterbacks, and let's get quarterbacks that have played a decent amount of snaps. By the way, Geno Smith has the most dropbacks under pressure in the NFL. That should come as no surprise. He's tied with Deshaun Watson. You don't want to be tied with Deshaun Watson in anything. Interestingly, Deshaun Watson is getting a 47 grade as a passer while being pressured. And Geno Smith is at 74.6. But in any event, we're going to look at when somebody is blitzed versus when they are not. And if you look at rankings and grades, when somebody is blitzed, when a quarterback is blitzed, Geno Smith is 6th in the NFL in grade when he is blitzed, 78.8. Kirk Cousins, when he is blitzed, he ranks 19th in the NFL, 62.3 grade, and he has fumbled the ball a little bit, so that contributes to that grade, but he has not been great. So 19th in the NFL when blitzed. When not blitzed, Kirk Cousins is 8th in the NFL. So you're talking about a guy who is shown vulnerability in an offensive line and running backs, by the way, who have shown vulnerability in protecting against the blitz. So even though Mike Macdonald does not like to blitz, he does like to bring pressure from different spots. This might be a game where some of those finally get home and maybe create some of these turnovers that the Seahawks defense has not been able to create. Now, one of the things that's interesting there is the Falcons have done a very good job of protecting the ball so far this year. They are 9th in the NFL in turnovers, and they are 14th in the NFL in takeaways. So they've done a pretty good job of taking the ball away, at least average, and they've done a better than average job of protecting. So it's interesting when you've got a quarterback in Kirk Cousins who does not escape pressure very well, who has an offensive line who's surrendering pressure, and a player who's not playing well when blitzed, you'd expect to see a little bit more on the turnover side. It is true that they are 17th in the NFL in interception rate. So they have thrown some interceptions this year. Kirk Cousins has 5 interceptions this year. But as far as overall turnovers, they haven't been that bad. And they've been getting takeaways pretty much every single game. So they've given up at least 1 turnover in each of the last 4 games, but only 1. The only time they had more than 1 was the first game of the season where they had 3. They have forced a turnover in each of the last 5 games, and 2 or more in 2 of the last 3. So the turnover battle has been something that certainly has been an issue for the Seahawks. They are among the worst in the NFL in turnovers, both given away and taken away, which makes you one of the worst in turnover differential, and that's no way to win. So these are some of the things that I think are going to come up in this game. I like the Seahawks' chances to create some pressure that they haven't maybe been able to get home with, and that could be something that helps with their ability to create some turnovers. So with that, let me go ahead and bring up tail of the tape. We can look at this together. And there we go. I know I had it somewhere. So let me add this up here. We can look at this together, and I can talk about what I've seen. And I want to, as always, remind folks, these DVOA insights are brought to you by ftnfantasy.com. You can get like the best football insights engine on the web at ftnfantasy.com. Stats Hub is amazing. You get access to DVOA. You get access to all sorts of other interesting data. And you can get 15% off using promo code HBAM. Hawkblogger Mornings, HBAM, HBAM. And it's less than $8 a month for FTN Plus. So head on over and do that. And I think you will like it. Let me know when you've done it. I'd love to hear what you're finding over there. So this is the DVOA look, is that these are some similar teams. In this case, you see a little bit more red, which is in favor of the Falcons as opposed to the Seahawks, right? So they are the 10th ranked DVOA team. Again, this is not a bad team. This is a good football team that is playing well. Offensively, that's the first three pieces here is the Atlanta offense is ranked 6th in DVOA. The Seahawks defense right now is ranked 18th. So they've really fallen off. There was a time where they were first, and that is no longer the case. Let me go ahead. I'm going to reshare my screen so you guys can actually see what I'm drawing over there. That will help. All right, let's get that back up there. So what I was saying is you look at the red here, and what's going on there is you've got, first of all, the Atlanta offense is better, but this is the biggest advantage for the Falcons. You've got the run offense for the Falcons is ranked 3rd in DVOA. The Seahawks is 16th. Or sorry, 19th. I wish it was 16th. That would be better. But still, this is where the Falcons are going to come in, and they are going to hammer and hammer and hammer. Now, here's one of the things I think is a potential advantage for the Seahawks. I think the narrative about the run defense is worse than the actual run defense right now. I think they actually played better against the 49ers, play in, play out than they did. They had some absolutely massive busts that are going to make those numbers look awful. That's just the reality. I think they're closer to playing better ball because I think they are playing more 3-down linemen. They're playing more neutral box. And now you are adding back in Byron Murphy to the mix. And you are adding, hopefully, Roy Robertson Harris if he can play this weekend. I think defensive linemen are the types of positions that often you can get in there and play relatively quickly. He won't play a ton of snaps, but I think he'll play a few. And I think that you're looking at what is, from a linebacker perspective, the first chance for those guys to really get some practice time together, to review film, and to get some of this cleared up. I think the Seahawks defense could look meaningfully better against the run. And if Atlanta comes in thinking, we're cock of the rock, we just rushed for 200 yards, we got these great running backs, we got these great offensive linemen that run block, we're just going to run over the Seahawks. If the Seahawks defense actually shows up differently in this game than they have in these others, you could get some Falcons situations where they're getting some 3rd and longs, where they're getting some short possessions. And until they adjust and realize, no, actually we should be attacking them through the air, that could be an early advantage for the Seahawks. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think that's a big part of how this, if they come in and the Falcons just run the ball effectively again, Good luck. I mean, this game's going to be real tough if the Seahawks are unable to slow down the run game. And there's going to be some folks that are like, good luck, it won't happen. I am hopeful. I am hopeful, and maybe unreasonably, but I think rationally hopeful that the Seahawks run defense will be better in this game. Realistically, though, this is a very good run offense. So I don't think it's realistic that they're going to hold them to 50 yards rushing or something like that. But could they hold them under 100? Could they hold them, right around 100 as opposed to the 150, 170, 190, 200? Yes, I do think that. So that's one piece. The other piece here is that the Atlanta pass offense is ranked 7th in DVOA. Again, top 10 in both run and pass. Seahawks pass defense has slid to 17th in DVOA, and I think this could be one of their most challenging pass defense situations all year. We don't know if Reek Woolen will be back. My guess is he will not be back. We don't know if Trey Brown is going to play. My guess is he's not going to play, but I don't know any of these things. I'm just guessing. If you're down Artie Burns, who was put on RER, Reek Woolen at corner, Trey Brown, 2 of your 3 starters and your top backup, then you're talking about Nehemiah Pritchett getting snaps as a starter. You're talking about Kobe Bryant probably being your starting nickel corner. Behind them, maybe D. Williams, your punt returner who is drafted as a receiver, might be your next corner. They're hard up there. They're hard up when it comes to the cornerback position. And if you look at the Seahawks roster, I'm going to do that right now. They're really, maybe Jarek Reed gets activated, but I can't imagine that they do that with just less than a week of practice. If you look at who they've got on their practice squad, you're talking about Josh Joby and Fionn Hicks as 2 guys that would be potential call-ups for this game. And one of those guys at least is going to be called up for this game. We should take a moment. I have not done this yet. Let's take a look. I did this before when they were acquired. Let's take a look at Joby and his playing time and when he has played before. So he is 26 years old. He played last year he played the last 2 years for the Eagles. He did get 240 snaps for the Eagles last year as a boundary corner. He was drafted in 2022 out of Alabama. That means that Carl Brooks knows him, most likely, the Seahawks secondary coach, and might have some insight. So Joby might be a likely call-up. This guy had a 42.7 coverage grade last year, 40.8 overall. Yikes, So, that guy could be getting snaps. If you look at Fionn Hicks as your other option for the Seahawks, this is a guy who I don't think has gotten any snaps. He got 1 snap in 2022, and that was at corner. He's only got 1 snap, so who knows? But he was drafted by the Broncos in the 7th round in 2022. Either Hicks or Joby. I'm guessing Joby, since he's got more snaps in the NFL, would be brought up. I think that's the biggest mismatch for the the Falcons in this game. Different bird in this game is their matchup with the Seahawks cornerbacks. And, you're going to get Drake London. You're going to get some of these guys. I think Darnell Mooney's had a good year and has made some big catches and some big plays. So I think that's where there's some challenge for the Seahawks, but you're going to see them likely try to start by really attacking the run game. Now, on the other side, when the Seahawks have the ball, it's nice to see some green, a little stack of green there for the Seahawks. And you see here the Atlanta defense and its DVOA rankings, not good. So 20th overall in DVOA for defense, 18th in run defense, 21st in pass defense. I'm going to show you some other numbers here in a second where I think they were worse than that. But this is, again, what I'm talking about. These grades for defending positions, the DVOA grades, have just dropped off the map for the Seahawks in this regard. Riq Woolen being out, huge issue. But they are 21st in the NFL in defending wide receiver ones, 24th in defending wide receiver twos, 23rd in defending wide receiver threes, 27th in defending tight ends. They still are good at defending running backs out of the backfield, but man, they're hurting. I think they're hurting in the secondary. They're going to need an amazing pass rush to cover for what is likely going to be a really rough secondary in this game. Now, if we take a look at the Seahawks on offense, one thing that I want to call out that isn't shown here, but the Seahawks and Geno Smith have feasted on some of these top man coverage teams. The Broncos like to play man coverage. The Patriots love to play man coverage. The Lions love to play man coverage. They are the teams that the Geno Smith has put up some really big numbers against. The Falcons are a zone team, top 2 or 3 in the NFL in terms of percentage of snaps that are zone coverage. So this is going to demand something different from Geno Smith than what he's had to do most of the year. And if you're curious, we can look at this, and we will. I'll tell you right now how Geno Smith has done against zone coverage, and how his receivers have done against zone coverage. So if I pull this up, let me see if I can if I get to, it doesn't look like I can pull up Geno Smith as much, but I can do receiving versus scheme. And so if you look at the Falcons and you look at, let's look at the Seahawks first, okay? The Seahawks have, against man coverage, Tyler Lockett's been their best receiver. DK Metcalf has been their second best. AJ Barner's been their third best. When you get into zone coverage, Kenneth Walker comes to life. Zach Charbonnet comes to life. Those two guys become a bigger part of the attack when you have zone coverage teams. DK Metcalf is close to the same player. Tyler Lockett drops significantly. So this is probably not a game where Tyler Lockett will be as big of a factor, at least based off of how things have gone in zone coverage versus man so far. I think Jake Bobo has an opportunity to potentially be a bigger factor in this game. And I think that Laviska Shenault has an opportunity to be a bigger factor in this game, because I think what you're going to see sometimes is a little bit more passes underneath that zone is allowing and trying to get a little bit of run after catch, yards after catch. That is something that Laviska Shenault has done well. He's averaging 10 yards after the catch in zone plays versus he's not even being used in man. Like, he has not been targeted when it's been man coverage so far. And the yards after the catch in general, lower in those situations. Now, I think what you're going to also see is when you have a cover 3 team, which is predominantly what the Falcons run, you're going to get weaknesses in the seams and weaknesses in the flats. And so remember, cover 3 was essentially what the Seahawks and Pete Carroll ran for all those years. Think about how many times the middle of the field was open. Think about how many times it was those underneath throws that just killed you. That's what the Falcons are going to allow. They don't allow a lot of explosives. So if you look here, Falcons have done a good job of limiting explosive passes. They're 4th in the NFL in limiting explosive passes because they are staying deep. But what that allows is underneath. And so one of the things they also are not good at is they are dead last in the NFL in terms of completion rate. They're 32nd out of 32 teams in terms of allowing completion rate on the season. So they're also, as I said, dead last in sack rate. So you've got a team that sits back in zone, gives you some easy completions, does not get pressure on the passer, and I think gives you an opportunity to have your running backs come to life a little bit as receivers. I think it will also give the tight ends an opportunity to be a bigger part of this game plan. So those are some of the things that I think on offense you're going to see in this game that are maybe different than what you've seen in some of these other games, because the Seahawks, for whatever reason, have played a number of man-heavy teams earlier in the season. The majority of the NFL is very zone-heavy. So we're going to see probably different parts of the playbook than we've seen and different players emphasized. The other piece to keep in mind is, the Seahawks have been an explosive passing team. This is probably a game where Geno Smith is going to have to accept a little bit more of the underneath plays and not be pushing it down the field as much. Doesn't mean he shouldn't try it, but it means that it could be tough. Now, the other thing that we talk about here is on the rush side. While the Falcons have been good at limiting explosive passes, they've been 26th in the NFL in terms of allowing explosive rushing plays. So this is a situation where you've got Kenneth Walker, who has been among the best in the NFL in forcing missed tackles. Same with Zach Charbonnet. I think that's going to be a big part of this. Has to be a big story in this game. I think the Seahawks have to try to rush for at least 130 yards. And ideally, I think you're talking about wanting to try to rush for 150 yards or more in this game. I think that that's a realistic goal, but I think they have to be able to stay in it. And I think they have to have some early success for that to happen. Now, the most concerning thing here for the Seahawks just in general has been this turnover line. And the Falcons, as I said, decent in turnovers, 14th in the NFL. Seahawks are 27th in the NFL on offense in terms of giveaways. Just cannot survive, cannot win in that fashion. So one other thing I will highlight, the Falcons 31st in the NFL in third down defense. So, that is a situation where, again, a lot of signs pointing to the Seahawks being able to have success on offense that could get them up into the 30-point range. A couple things that I'll just call. I think the Falcons defensively do not have a lot of great players. Their corners are okay. Mike Hughes is okay. Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, the old safeties that they've got, have been great players. They are not great players, but they're still solid players right now. And so, I just don't see a lot of greatness on that team. People know AJ Terrell. I don't think he's a great corner. He's okay. So I think the Seahawks, again, you're getting a lot of zone coverage. So it's a little harder to, you're not getting these guys asking to man up on anybody. And we'll see how that goes. If we switch over sides and we look at the Seahawks on defense, when the Falcons have the ball, you are going to have a lot of red. This is not what you want to see. This is not what you want to see. And that's just the state of the Seahawks defense heading into this game. It has been the worst defense in football for the last 3 games, and that's dragged everything down. The only place that the Seahawks have any advantage is in situational football. Third downs and red zone. The Seahawks are 8th in the NFL in third down defense. Did you know that? You surprised by that? I bet if I looked, part of the reason is they haven't faced a lot of third downs because teams are getting first downs before they get to third down. But in any event, they have done a decent job on third down this year. Red zone, they are 13th. So in these situational moments, the Seahawks have actually been pretty good. The Falcons have not. The Falcons are 23rd in the NFL on third downs on offense, 23rd in the NFL in red zone conversions on offense. So that could be a place where the Seahawks make some hay. And I think, again, getting the Falcons into third down situations is going to be important. Let's take a look for a second. I'm going to pull this up because why not? I want to look at how the Falcons have done in different third down situations. My guess is that they have not faced a lot of third and long on the year. So I'm going to take a look at third down. So we'll look at third down, and we will look at 7 yards or more to go. How often the Falcons have faced that situation on the year. And my guess is they have not faced it a ton. So let's see. Falcons, yes, they are. I've only had that happen 33 times on the year. That is basically 31, like 29th in the NFL. So they basically just don't face that situation very often. When they're in that situation, they have a relatively high conversion rate still. They're a top 15 team in conversion rate, even if you get to third and a little bit longer. So we'll see what happens there. I'm curious if they're higher in that regard, then where are they struggling on third down? If they're a 23rd rated team, let's take a look at third and short. How have the Falcons done there? First of all, again, they have faced very few third and shorts on the year, one of the least in the league. When they are in a third and short situation, they're actually one of the worst teams in the NFL in converting. They've converted less than half of their chances on third and short. So that's a little surprising for a good run defending team or running team that's the case. We might as well complete and look at third and mid, third and 4 to 6 yards, see how they've done in that situation. So that's where they've had most of their third downs, is third and medium. And in those situations, they are a top 10 converting team. By the way, the Seattle Seahawks are 9th in the NFL in conversion rate on third and medium, 4 to 6 yards. They are converting 50%. It's interesting. The Falcons are 11th. So really the Falcons' challenge on third down has come in third and short, which is wild. But generally, they're just not seeing a lot of third downs. And so again, this is where I would say, let's see if the Seahawks can surprise them by being more effective in run defense on early downs. And if I look at this, I want to look at play distribution. So I'm going to look on first downs, and let's get out any QB kneels or things like that. And I want to see what the Falcons do run versus pass on first down. My guess is they are a heavy rushing team. They've rushed 93 times and passed 83. So they do tend towards the run. As far as tendencies go, as a comparison, the Seahawks have passed 121 times and run 73 times on first down. So nobody has passed more often on first down than the Seahawks, which I think is a good thing. It's just that they haven't gotten back to the run in other places. But yeah, the Falcons do like to run the ball on first down. When they do run the ball, just kind of curious how effective they are on first down runs. Let's just limit to running plays, and let's see what their average yards gained were in those situations. If you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do while I'm doing all this. I'd appreciate it. If you haven't figured out that I'm sick in the head, you should by now, because the Seahawks have lost 3 in a row. Everyone's given up on this team, and I am looking up what the Falcons' running average is on first down because I'm curious. Yes, here it is. So the Falcons are 5th in the NFL in yards per carry on first down. They average 5.2 yards per carry on first down. They've gotten a first down on first down when they've run 16% of the time, which is also a top 10 number. Now, here's a fascinating one. Would you be surprised to hear that the Seahawks, when they run on first down, are a top 15 team, top 12 team on yards per carry, 4.5, and they are the 4th highest team in terms of earning a new first down on a first down run. 19%. 19% of the Seahawks first down runs have turned into first downs. That seems odd. I think that there might be counting some. In any event, it's all the same because we're matching the same thing, but the Seahawks have done well there as well. So yeah, I think you've got a situation where the Falcons are almost certainly going to try to take what is, a really like a solid running game. It's not amazing, but it's very solid. They're 11th in yards per rush. They're 14th in rush EPA. And they're going up against a Seahawks rush defense that is 28th in yards per rush, 15th in rush EPA, which is maybe higher than people would expect. But I think that's where it just seems to make a lot of sense. The Falcons are going to try to attack them there. Hopefully they don't attack them through the air early, because I think that's a challenge for the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are going to be really bowed up to try to stop the run. If the Falcons pull the chair out from under them and say, no, we're just going to pass on you all day, it could be tough to stop. It could really be tough to stop. Also worth noting that the Falcons 6th in the NFL in explosive passes, 8th in the NFL in explosive rushes. So, this is a very good team at creating explosive plays. And that's how they have kind of made their way through to this point. So, other things I'll share real quick, special teams wise, they have a better kicker, better place kicker for sure. Michael Dixon started having more success in this last game in terms of his net yards per punt. He was down at 27th. He's now at 19th in that regard. The Seahawks, from a kick return perspective, got a big boost from Laviska Shenault's return. So they're 3rd in the NFL in kick returns average at this point. So what you see here, I think, with this matchup, guys and gals, is that you've got a really good team in the Falcons that are feeling very confident. They're going to have to come in here feeling like they can do whatever they need to on offense to win. They're most likely going to try to really establish the run game, because that's how they've played up until now, and there's no real reason the Seahawks are giving them to change that. I think you've got a Seahawks team that has legitimate reasons to expect that they might defend the run better than they did in previous weeks. And I think a Seahawks team that is going to be playing with more rest and more urgency than the Falcons. We'll see if that translates, but I think the Falcons just finished a 3-game slate against division opponents, are riding high at home. I think if the Seahawks come out here and punch them early, I think it's gonna stagger them, and I think that I really honestly believe there's a chance that could happen. It's a 10 a.m. start. There's no excuses for slow starts in this one. They can't use that as an excuse. They have to get there. They have to get acclimated. They have to be ready to play from the jump. And if they do, then I think the Seahawks offense has considerable advantages. I think the Seahawks offense against this Atlanta defense should be able to put up a lot of points. You just had Andy Dalton and the Falcons. Andy Dalton and the Panthers put up 20 points, and they were really on the way to putting up more than that. Andy Dalton threw a really bad interception late in that game when they were kind of driving to tie it. You had Chuba Hubbard rush for 92 yards, had a ton of room there. There's a lot of guys that have gone against this Atlanta defense and been able to run the ball. So I think you're going to have a really big, Kenneth Walker is huge in this game. I think this could be one of those 100 yard rushing, 100 yards receiving. Like, I don't think that's realistic, but I think that this could be the type of game where he just has a ton of scrimmage yards and will be the focal point. I think Zach Charbonnet will get a fair amount of run, and I think the tight ends may be bigger parts of the game plan than they have been in previous weeks. So that's what I got. I think this is a tough one to prognosticate. I think, you know, the Falcons are 2.5 points favorites. I might as well take a look on ftnfantasy.com, promo code HBAM to see the latest odds and what the model has going there. Last time I checked, it was 2.5 points in favor of the Falcons. And as it stands, it is still between 2.5 and 3 points, depending on which book you're looking at, in favor of the Falcons. I think that's about right. And this is a game the Seahawks can win, should not be favored to win, but absolutely need to win. We'll see how that all plays out come 10 a.m. Sunday. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. If you haven't joined as a YouTube member, please do. Go ahead and click the link in the description to join as a YouTube member. Join as a Patreon member, patreon.com/hawkblogger. We just got a new Ring of Honor member yesterday, which just makes my day. It's so amazing when people support us and support the show in that kind of way. Would love to have you over there, get access to the Slack channel, get all the audio versions of this pod. And then tonight, 6 o'clock Pacific time, we will have Real Hawk Talk with Evan Hill and Jeff Simmons, and we will have some fun on that show as well. It's always great when we get those guys together. So see you later there. We will get our first practice report. I'll be heading to the VMAC here in a little bit to figure out what's going on, talk to Mike McDonald and some other folks, and I'll let you know what I find. Until then, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all of you. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been hour 2 of episode 206 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.